Welcome back to Music Theory Logic. Andrew here, and today is another Making It From Scratch. This is going to be continuing Making It From Scratch number 14. My goal when starting this series was to basically make music that I may use in some sort of professional capacity, but really just commit to making new ideas while I'm on live video, and that's kind of preparing me for streaming, and it's a different creative space up here, and experimenting in that way always helps us musicians or creative people in general. Let's go ahead into this Logic session. So here it is. I really like the sort of drop or the drum section that comes in. I'm going to start by playing it. If you find this stuff helpful or cool at all, first of all, I really appreciate you. And second of all, you would help me out a lot by subscribing. Here's the track as it starts, and we'll figure out stuff to do to it. Cool. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Once again, I made this from scratch on live video. That would be Making It From Scratch number 14. So go and check that out, and you'll find a bunch of other Making It From Scratches as well. I did everything live except for the guitar playing, which I think I did as shorts. And we started out by editing those guitars. We built this bass from scratch. So go check out all that stuff. So a lot of what I feel like the track needs to bring it to the next level are mix elements. The mix elements are going to kind of separate sections of the song. I feel like we need to play around with the bass sound in what would be kind of the verses or the halftime section as I have it. And yeah, let's just get going to it. So the first thing I was thinking is the cymbal. If we play that, let me unmute the channel. So first of all, I noticed that none of my drums are going to my reverb buses. I'm not sure if I even set up my busing. It does look like I did actually. So snare, it's kind of a good idea to send like all of your instruments, at least a really tiny bit, to some sort of bus reverb. That kind of tricks our brains into thinking that these instruments are existing in a real environment, which outside of the computer is basically how our brains heard music for many hundreds of thousands of years, or however long we've been floating around this galaxy. But basically, if I take that snare and I use the busing down here, it's like a volume knob. I can send some of it and then use my ear. So again, my first reverb, I'm using RC48 from Native Instruments, and my second reverb, I'm using from UAD via an Apollo interface, the Lexicon reverb, and I'm using that on the KK, I think it's Kevin Klein atmosphere setting. I've heard a lot of different producers and artists talk about this specific reverb on I think And the Writer Is with Ross Golan podcast I listen to from time to time. I feel like the producer who worked with a smash hit indie-ish band that I'm blanking on the name of was referencing that. Anyway, not to digress, we're going to do the same thing to the cymbals. So sending them to the reverb as well. Now I think with cymbals, I like to be a little bit more subtle, so I'll have less of it. Now perhaps I turn down our Reverb Bus. Cool. Another thing that's really going to help the cymbal sound is to put a little delay on it. I love the H delay from Waves. It's just super straightforward. And basically the delay on a cymbal, since it's doing like a steady eighth note in this rhythm, yes, I'm correct on that. We have some swing, so that's giving it a lot of groove already. But if I put this on like an eighth note delay and I filter it and I have just a little bit of it, let's listen to just the cymbals. Without, with. So rhythmically, it's not really doing too much because it's the same rhythm. Now it is creating a little bit of like a subtle trill, or where that steady eighth note hits our swung eighth. But again, that's gonna really help a lot. So let's just hear the drums. Now maybe with the snare, it's a little too much reverb. Cool. The next thing that really helps is thinking about a stereo image with regards to drums. So like I'm going to put the cymbals, if you're looking at a stage, typically the drummer is like in the middle. And if they're playing on their hi-hat, that is slightly on the right when you're looking at the stage. So I'm going to push this cymbal ever so slightly to the right. Those of you wearing headphones will really notice that a lot more. Cool. Let's go in to the bass. Now, right there. Cool. So one thing we could do is we could create a side chain. So the way that I like to do that, there's various ways to do this. In Logic, I basically will take the kick channel, I will duplicate it, I will grab all those kicks, I will move them to the same channel that I just duplicated. My first step is to go to no output so that I don't clip my system, which you will do accidentally from time to time, just kind of startling. You're not really going to hurt anything. If I like to then name it trigger so that I can reference that in our next step. And then so that it's not triggering for a long time, it's just triggering like right when the attack of the kick happens, I like to cut everything off below 500 hertz, or in this case, it's like 445. Shout out to my mentor, Mr. Mark Suhonen, who taught me a lot of this stuff that I have used to this day. So then on this bass, we're going to sidechain it. Now, you can do sidechaining a lot of different ways. If you're using like a style of music that has a really like steady kick drum, like house music, Volume Shaper or LFO Tool from X Records is really helpful. In this kind of sound, I'm going to make it pretty subtle. I'm going to use an R bass from Waves, an R compressor. The R bass perhaps would help mix-wise on that as well. And then I'm going to go to trigger, that channel we just created. Now, with sidechaining, typically you want your attack to be instant so that it's cutting out right when the kick happens. That's going to help the transients. And then the amount of ducking we'll hear coming back is kind of the release. You want to hit a lot of the bass sound by a decent amount. Now, once again, that's going to really let the transients or the attack sort of harmonics cut through from that kick channel. All right, cool. The next thing I was thinking as we listen to it is that we need to really differentiate this next section or it's going to feel kind of boring. So one thing I would do is I would take our snare channel and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm then going to grab all the snares that happen at those points of the song, move them to a new channel. And one thing that really is kind of nice on the ears is just to do like a high shelf thing to make that a smaller section. Another thing we could do to give it more character right there is use that same effect, that H delay, add a little sort of syncopation as a fancy term, or like use a dotted rhythm. Let's see, we're going to not want a ton of it. I'm going to filter the dotted rhythm. So in the H delay, the other great thing about it is it has the filters are just pretty intuitive and simple. So I'm rolling off the high end. That makes the delay feel even more filtered than the snare itself. And I think that dotted rhythm works with what I was doing on the guitar. So I like that. And that's already going to make this. Now, another thing that music is really like all about dynamics. There's something like our brains, humans, we are super adaptable creatures. Talked about like working out before on this channel. I find it really helpful. But like if you do an activity and it was hard at first, your body's going to adapt to it a ton. Like if you go get out on a road bike and do cycling, it's really crazy because you'll see people like hauling up hills who don't seem to be in better shape than you, but they're just really well adapted to riding the bike. And so our ears get really adapted to the frequencies that we're hearing before. So like that kick drum hitting hard, one thing I can really do to make it feel like a smaller section is make it hit less hard. All right, so I could cut out ever so slightly the subs. I might maybe shape out the middle of that a little bit. Cool. The next thing I feel like I should do is change the bass ever so slightly. So one thing I could definitely do, and this is kind of a fun technique, if you've built a sound like this, say you follow along with me building this sound, a lot of what we're doing is on a quarter note feel. If I slow it down to a half note, it's going to sound like this. Remember what you changed because that's going to change the sound of the rest of the bass line. But what you're going to then do is grab the parts you want to be different, bounce it in place. Standard key command in Logic is Control B for that. So I bounce it, here it is. Then once again, I really want to remember to do this, put the patch back. So another way you can do this is duplicate the patch, but that is a little bit harder on your computer because then it has to run two at the same time. And with my current filming setup, I'm filming on the computer that I'm producing on. I am actively researching. I might buy one of those new Mac Studios to be my like sort of streaming hub. That would also allow me to demo some of the new Logic features, like that sequencer. Looks pretty cool. So now that we have this other bass, I think what we should do is not get rid of the subs, just mellow them out. Now the other thing I'm going to do, so let's see here. We hear the because we softened the transients, we hear that like popping. Now that is from that sidechain, which we don't notice. So I'm gonna actually redo that. So let's go back here, unmute it, go back. So turn off the sidechain, go back, put it to half note again. Cool. Take it, bounce it in place, Control B. All right, and put the patch back, quarter notes and quarter note. There we go. All right, so we hear this. Now there is an artifact in there, but I was thinking of making it really a lot smaller. So filtering, or just changing the frequencies we hear with the EQ. Cool, so let's return to what I was talking about in the very beginning, this whole idea of room reverbs. I've done that on the guitars. That feels really spacey. This synth patch, it's got a lot of air to it already, but it's not in the same room. And I do believe that our brains pick up on a lot of things that we might not consciously think of when we're listening to music. And so this subtle reverb on this tells our brains it's in the same room as these guitars. Now I can use more reverb or less. The other thing I kind of want to do, which my system may handle, may not. Let's see if I use this. I think in Logic it's a directional mixer. There we go. So I want to have the spread be really small and then get really big. So I'm going to turn on my automation recording. Starts out small. Getting wider. Perfect. And then back to read. When you do that, you can hit A. Look for the drop down that you created. There's our spread. Then I could like leave it wide. For the verses, I could do the same thing, like come to narrow, make it get bigger, make it get really big at our hook section, All right, cool. So that creates space. It sounds like this. Now, let's, so we have a real spacey vibe created. I want to go into our guitar rig and add a delay. So, echoes and delay. Let's go with the delay man. Time, let's see here. I got to tap the tempo here. So let's hear that. Better tempo. Nice. I think that will really settle that guitar into the texture of it all. Yeah, I guess one other thing we could do is like halfway through the verse. We could bring that guitar back in. Cool. So I'm going to play it like the first half of this through what we edited. Hopefully you found this fun. I think this track is really cool. It's coming to life. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, music is fun. That's all it is about. So here it is with everything we did. Cool. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Once again, my name is Andrew. You would help me out a lot by subscribing to the channel. Go make some music. Let me know in the comments if you want me to cover any sort of other topics or you want to show me your music. I'd love to check it out. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you next time.